Today's Tri-State PGA Junior Golf Minute is presented by Isley's. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Tri-State PGA Junior Golf Minute, and we're excited to be joined by Chris Noble. Chris works with Next Gen Golf, and we'll let Chris tell you a little bit about himself and a little bit about Next Gen. So, Chris, thanks for spending some time with us today.
Bob, thanks so much for having me and having us on, and really appreciate it. It's great to be here. So, a little bit about myself. Again, I manage the high school side of things, the National High School Golf Association at Next Gen Golf. My personal background: played 4 years of high school golf, 4 years of varsity college golf at Holy Cross College across from Notre Dame. In South Bend, Indiana. And kind of my background before I came aboard here is in the college golf recruiting space. Used to work for Next College Student Athlete for a couple years, working with families through the recruiting process, really the do's and don'ts of the process, getting them in touch with college coaches. And it's been a great transition over to Next Gen Golf and in my role here. Really continuing to work with that next generation of golf and really giving a true home and resource for high school golfers, for coaches, for parents to get information, when it comes to playing junior golf tournaments, when it comes to the recruiting process, and even providing them different types of opportunities to get noticed by some of these coaches and really hopefully realizing their end goal of playing golf in college one day as well.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting and very important part of playing high school golf and working with the families and trying to help them. And I guess, Chris, talk a little bit about advice for parents. Obviously, they've heard from some various college coaches, heard from some various players. But what kind of advice would you give to them as they start this process, Chris?
Yeah, it's interesting because everybody starts at a different level, right? You'll have some parents, some families that I talk to where their sons or daughters have played junior tournaments for years, and other ones who this might be their first year of competitive play. And the biggest thing I think is getting their sons or daughters, involved in especially as many tournaments as possible. And the whole process, and I'm sure everybody else would agree, is starting them at the local level, right? And, letting them build upon some of that success, where if they actually can start at maybe a 9-hole or an 18-hole tournament league around the area, see some success there, try to work up to some of the different state level junior golf tournaments. Obviously some great events that are run through various PGA sections. And then once you get past that, move up to that regional, that national level, more of your American Junior Golf Associations, your multi-day tournaments. But that's the most important thing, is because I've seen some families and some players where you have to walk before you run, right? And I think that's the biggest thing is getting the confidence up of those players so they can really build on that and continue to see success at a higher level. And I think the other most important thing for any junior golfer is to have a resume. Ideally, in this day and age, making a digital golf resume, regardless of whether or not a family wants to go through a recruiting service, that's up to them. But making it easy for college golf coaches to see who the player is, what type of tournament experience they have, what their academics are like, extracurriculars, swing videos, but having that ability to be findable and searchable by college coaches is just so important.
You talk about the resume, which I agree with you is so important. When you're working with coaches and working with players a little bit, what is the number one thing, if there's a number one thing, that a coach is really looking for in a player?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's maybe not necessarily one thing. I think it's a couple things. I mean, the way I always said it to my families is the beauty of golf is that it's objective, right? 72 is always going to beat 74, and 74 is always going to beat 78. So they want to see numbers. And I get a question a lot is saying, oh, should I be looking at putting my son or daughter at a college golf camp, or should I maybe put that money toward a tournament? Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of benefits when it comes to camps. However, that's never going to be able to really showcase their talents to a college coach as a junior golf tournament or actual tangible rounds will. So without a doubt, seeing a lot of those tournament rounds, and question I get a lot too is, well, what types of tournaments? And as you continue to go through the process, the advice that I always try to give is these coaches want to see multi-day events, because ideally that's what you're going to find at the college level. So 36, 54-hole tournaments at yardages that are going to be close to what you're going to find in college. So again, from a boys' side, anywhere from that 6,800 yard mark and longer, and from a girls' standpoint, about 5,800 yards or longer. Because again, it's not always apples to apples, but if these coaches are able to see that you can perform and shoot some of those scores that they're looking for at those types of courses and those types of yardages under competition and tournament levels, that's always going to be a good sign that you're going to be able to make that transition to their team in a pretty good manner.
Yeah, I think that was actually going to be one of the questions, Chris, I was going to ask you, because we get that conversation a lot, and we talk to kids a lot about that, saying, okay, well, how do I juggle this tournament, or how do I juggle that tournament? And having that kind of concrete, okay, this is exactly what they're looking for,
right,
from a yard standpoint or from a number standpoint. And would you agree, Chris, that that's pretty standard across the board from Division I through to Division III, or is there some fluctuation with with Division II and Division III?
Yeah, I think there might be a little bit of fluctuation, like you said, even when you get into your Division II, Division III, and even myself personally, I went to Holy Cross, which is an NAI school. A lot of people, don't even know what it is, and they completely forget about the NAI, which stands for the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics. But the way I could frame it is, sure, those coaches still want to see great numbers, but they may be a little bit more willing to work with a player that isn't quite that finished product yet, right? That maybe doesn't have that polished resume as somebody who might be going to a top tier Division I school would be. So that's the one thing you have to really keep in mind when looking at these schools and looking at these colleges, where they're all competitive, they all have great teams, they all have great players. But at the end of the day, your D2, D3 NAI schools, even junior colleges for that matter, they're going to be willing to work with a player that has a lot of potential, maybe doesn't quite have that resume as you would find at the D1 level.
I think that's another great weakness is, obviously, as you start in the game, as you start as a high school golfer, you have the aspirations and you have the, okay, right, I want to go and play at the big time schools.
Right.
And from what it sounds, a coach may take a chance on you, but if you're kind of flushing as a sophomore or as a junior, you might want to look at the Division II or the Division III, maybe even the NAIA, as an opportunity for you to really continue to develop and go that route.
Absolutely. No, and I'm glad, Bob, that you brought that up, because that was a question that I always try to pose to my families, is asking the kids, what is your end goal, right? And the way I can frame it is, okay, if you're a great player, you might have an opportunity to go to a D1 school, but also realize how competitive it might be. And there's a very good chance that you may not touch the starting lineup for a semester, for a year, for maybe even 2 years. Whereas if you might look at, let's just say, a Division III or an NAI school, yeah, it may not have that big name behind it, but you're going to contribute. You're going to walk in there day one and really be able to make that impact. And that's part of the reason, personally, why I chose Holy Cross. And, come to find out, even my freshman year, we qualified for the national championship. And, we were the first sports team to ever represent Holy Cross at a national tournament, which, for me was amazing. So a lot of times that's why I try to almost pose a question on the player or the family and saying, what's important to you, and what do you really want to get out of that that first couple years of your college experience.
That's I think right. You may be, the top one or top two at your high school,
Right.
Locally, whether it's here in Pennsylvania or wherever you are, and you may then go to a Division I school, and like you said, you may sit and you may not be used to that. So I think that's something you've got to accept and understand that, hey, if I'm going to Notre Dame or if I'm going here, I may be 8 or 9 or even 10 where I was number 1 or number 2 at my high school. So kind of an adjustment of expectations a little bit, Chris.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Excellent. I got you. Now, Chris, one of the things that you guys do, and it may not be specifically to what you're working on, but let's say we have a player who still wants to play in college, but they're not have the, I shouldn't say ability, but maybe they're still relatively new to the game and they want to just play this from a recreational standpoint. Chris, talk a little bit about what you guys do for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, Bob. And so we also, alongside of what we do on the high school front, we also govern collegiate club golf throughout the United States. So the NCCGA, or the National Collegiate Club Golf Association. And the great thing about club golf is all swings are welcome and it's all inclusive. So, for example, you have a player that may want to go to University of Notre Dame or University of Michigan, and they may be a really good player, they may be a complete newbie, and they want to do an engineering degree or they want to do something in the medical realm. Well, they're able to do that and at the same time still play pretty darn competitive golf, and scores range anywhere from 65 to 125. But at the end of the day, the cool thing about it is you're still part of a team environment. The events that we host are always on the weekends, so you're never going to miss any class. And we have 2 national championships as well, one in the spring and one in the fall semester. Actually, the biggest college golf tournament, varsity or non, that happens across the country. And to be able to still represent your school at a national tournament, get that full college experience is pretty amazing. And it's really cool. I'll share a quick story. We had a young man from University of Michigan a few years ago and played for the club team for about 2 years, played really well, was medalist at nationals. Long story short, the varsity coach took notice, and now for his last 2 years, he's able to compete on the varsity team. So you do see some of those success stories of our kids actually going on to realize that dream of actually playing on the varsity team as well. So a great stepping stone for.
Yeah, that's interesting you bring that up, because maybe you are, like we talked about, you're a junior or senior, you're getting there, you're just starting to realize how much you like the game, and having the opportunity to play, on the collegiate golf tours is amazing. And I know, Chris, one of the big programs, Robert Morris here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I know a couple of those young men that play on that team, for working in the golf industry, and they love it. I mean, they talk all about it. Chris, let's say that you go to a school, and they don't have this program per se. Talk a little bit about how they can actually still participate.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great thing about club golf, right? Where if you have a player that goes to a college or university that maybe doesn't have a formalized team, they can still compete. They can compete individually for all of our events. Or, if they're a go-getter, here's a cool thing. They can actually start up their own team. And we have the resources with our team to be able to provide them really the help and support that they would need to actually take on that venture and start up a club golf team. But yeah, that's the great thing. Again, even if they aren't able to do that, they still want to be able to play in the semester. They can go off, compete individually in all of our events. And like I said, it's co-ed as well. So we have plenty of teams where there's some great young men, some great young women who are involved, and like I said, different types of leadership positions too. So for some of those teams, we actually have, club presidents, great opportunities for them to practice some leadership, some different skills. We even have different ambassadors through us as well, that they can, really get more and more involved in. Like you said, especially if maybe the golf industry is something that they want to, make a career one day. What a great opportunity to at least get a little bit of a taste a taste of it as well.
I think that's a really good point there too, Chris. If someone wants to be a club professional or somehow in the game of golf, being able to play in these competitive tournaments is certainly going to put them in that mindset. I know when I decided to get into golf, it took me a little while to get through the PAT, and playing in these events, you've already have that competition. So that's gonna be one extra level that's gonna make you even better.
Absolutely.
So good. And, one of the things too, Chris, and what I see here, and I think you would agree, obviously, with, working with the PGA of America, there's now really a clear path from the start of when a junior, whether they start at the drive, chip, and putt level, wherever they start. So you go drive, chip, and putt, junior league, your tours here in the sections, and then they can funnel right into your program, Chris.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly right, Bob. And that's a great thing is to kind of have that full progress or that full stepping stones, that like you said, builds on a player's experience, level wherever they're at. They have a starting point. And that's what we want to continue to do is just get more kids, more young men and women involved in the game, and make it competitive and fun. And that's really the whole goal behind it, regardless of what we do on the high school or the college side, but just getting more people involved in the game and hopefully giving them that opportunity to have some competition, but, really just enjoy the camaraderie of their friends and their teammates as well.
Yeah, that's perfect. And Chris, kind of want to switch gears here a little bit.
Sure.
You guys are working with the New England PGA on a pretty cool initiative that's going to be coming up. Talk a little bit about the recruiting event that you guys have organized.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, we're really excited for it. So this coming Thursday, the 30th of this month, from 4 to 7 Eastern time, we're actually going to be hosting a college golf recruiting seminar, like you said, in conjunction with the New England PGA. And really, it's a free event. We are encouraging those who attend, if they are able to. All pledges are actually in support of the Golf Relief Fund that the PGA of America has set up as well to really help the great men and women in our game who are affected by the pandemic. But we have a great lineup of panelists from Keegan Bradley, former PGA Championship winner, PGA Tour player, Buddy Alexander, former University of Florida golf coach for over 25 years. We actually have a couple of players, Aiden Thomas and Jessica Myers, who competed in our national invitational last year and are off in college now, and a couple of the young up-and-coming players as well. So we're really excited, I think, to give families and those who are tuning in all different perspectives, right? Regardless whether that's from a coach, whether that's from a current junior player, current college student, and trying to really tackle this confusing and very unsure process into one that makes a lot of sense and hopefully is going to provide a lot of value to the families who join in.
Yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. And for those of you that have actually been listening to our podcasts, Jess actually talked to us a couple of weeks ago. Jess played on some of our tours, and her family has been very active in golf in Western Pennsylvania. Her mom and younger sister have helped us with drive, chip, and putts and everything. So yeah, I'm sure Jessica will be an awesome panelist for you guys, and she has a pretty cool perspective on things at Notre Dame and playing. So, but you guys really you've done a great job. I think you've really cover every spectrum there. I saw one of the young men that plays for Robert Morris too. So I think that's going to be it's going to be neat for people to kind of hear what it really is. It's really soup to nuts, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely. No, we're so excited, and like you said, I don't, obviously there's been other types of recruiting events, but anywhere from Division I, like you said, to Tanner over at Robert Morris on the club golf team, and that's the thing, right? Is hey, there's not one right path for this, but I think kind of hearing the stories of each individual person, to give you a better idea of really what that best path might be for you along the journey as well.
Yeah, and then obviously So Mike Bender's going to be there, and Trillium, Rose, who are just fantastic PGA of America professionals and great teachers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, it's great to always, hear from those types of coaches. And like you said, just the ones who work with these kids, day in and day out, and how they can get involved. And that's our hope too, is even for different high school coaches and who might want to get involved with their players and say, hey, how can I help out, in this process? I think they're going to be able to learn a couple things from the panel as well.
Absolutely. And Chris, just closing, talk to us about maybe questions and things parents should kind of be thinking about as they go through these process. Talk coaches, admissions officers, just give them kind of an overview of what they should be thinking about as they go into.
Right, absolutely. And, the parents or the guardian's role in this process is so important, from anything from just support and really, building that confidence in your player. And that's the thing, right, is one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give. And I understand, hey, we always will do everything we can for our kids. But remember, it is their process. So especially when these kids, when these juniors are talking to coaches, regardless whether that's an email or if that's, a phone call or an in-person visit on campus, let them do a lot of the talking. It's totally fine to prep them and get them ready. But again, the coach, what I always say is the coach is always recruiting the player, not the parent. So kind of keeping that in the back of your head is always important. Just small things in terms of once, that junior player might have gone on a visit, send a thank you note, right? Make sure that you can really show these coaches, how much you appreciate them taking the time to meet with you and your family. And that's, understanding, especially where the parents can really get involved, in my opinion, is after, especially that offer letter might have been issued, and totally understanding it, what that entails, in terms of especially the process of signing a NLI, right, a national letter of intent. What does that exactly mean? What is that binding my son or daughter to? Like you said, when it comes to filling out, especially the FAFSA, especially for the federal student aid program. I mean, that's where your player is going to need a lot of help from a parent side of things, right? So I think, a lot of the help and support in the beginning is being there for the player. And then once, you can kind of get the ball rolling of dollars and cents of scholarship, of offer letters, that's really when those families can make all the difference in the world and really get involved with those players as much as possible.
And I would when you look at, when a coach is looking at you and a coach is recruiting you, they're going to look at this from a standpoint of, okay, the player is answering the questions, the player is taking the step forward. It shows a sign of maturity, I would imagine,
right.
and the coaches want to hear it from the kids, not necessarily mom or dad asking all the questions.
Exactly right. Exactly right, Bob. And that's the thing, right, is, hey, it's totally fine. There's going to be some of those questions, like you said, from a financial and just, some more of those dollars and cents that, 100%, be involved. But especially when it comes to, the coach maybe asking, hey, why do you want to go to my school, or why would you be a good fit for my program? Let them talk, and another tip that I always try to give to the families is, hey, email is great. It's a great starting point. But in terms of a phone call and really calling that coach, they're going to be able to learn more about you as a player by you talking to them, because your personality and who you are cannot come across in an email, right? But it can, especially in a phone call or even a visit to campus as well.
Yeah, I think that's another great point too, Chris, is, be the player being able to pick up the phone and have that conversation with your coach. Right. We have a professional here in our section that is a high school coach, and he won't let the kids text him. He tells them they actually have to pick up the phone and call. And, I think these days have gotten so used to being on the text real fast. And I think we all have, just as a generation. Right. But again, it shows that level of maturity. It shows that level of commitment that they're going to be able to talk to their coach and communicate what they need.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
That's fantastic. And, Chris, I want to thank you so much for taking some time. You guys are doing some really cool stuff. Hopefully our players here in the tri-state will get on the in and outs of recruiting. I think there's a lot to be learned there, and certainly hope to chat with you again soon, Chris. And like I said, I appreciate you coming on and spending some time with me.
Thanks so much for having us. Can't thank you enough. And like I said, we're so excited about the upcoming webinar. Hopefully, as many of your juniors and families are able to join as possible. And happy just to be part of the journey and provide some hopefully good and helpful insight and resources along the way.
Thanks. That was golf, and we thank him for his expertise today. All right.